Welcome to AM. My name's Richard Conway, and this is the platform for age group multisport athletes to showcase their journeys. Welcome along to episode 21 of AMP, and we're doing this second podcast from the new AMP HQ. We're all settled in, finally. We've been here about 3 weeks now. We've finally got the interweb up and running, so we're not having a hotspot anymore, which is fantastic when we're trying to do a podcast, and also when we're trying to use technology such as Zwift. It's quite expensive, really, trying to hotspot into your Wi-Fi all the time, but that's over with, and we managed. And I was just thinking that not only does this podcast show the journeys of the fantastic athletes that have been on, which is the whole point of it, to be fair, but we've there's another side to it, really, that come to me, and it's the fact that this is going to be left in the ether for generations to come of each of those athletes' families to listen back to, which I thought is quite extraordinary if you think about it. So grandchildren and great-grandchildren will be able to find this off the World Wide Web, because it ain't going nowhere, is it? Let's face it. It's once it's recorded and put out there, it's there forever, and it's on all the platforms. And unless something happens drastically, then it's, like I say, it's going to be there forever. So, platforms like Spotify and Apple Podcast and YouTube, these things will probably be around for a long, long time. So generations, I would think. But so their stories are on here, and they can dip in and listen to what granddad and or grandma were doing back in the day, which I think is just fascinating, really. So if you're interested in coming on and leaving a bit of a legacy about what you used to get up to for your grandchildren or your great-great-grandchildren, then give us a shout. Get in touch on Instagram, or send us an email at Age Group Multisport Podcast. Age Group Multisport Podcast at gmail.com, and we'll get you on, and you can leave your legacy. Yeah. So that's about it, I think, for now. There isn't much news going on. We'll get straight into this episode 21, which features Mark Shepherd. See you on the other side.
It is. No surprise to discover that I'm wearing orange.
Orange, indeed. Yes, I remember from Ponder that was your favourite colour.
Yeah, it hasn't changed, mate. It's still the same on everything. The amount of orange I own doesn't bear thinking about.
Well, if it ain't broke and you like it, it's fine, isn't it?
Well, the other half said it. It was in Punta, when you've got basically everyone's in a GB suit.
Yeah.
riding a bright orange bike, wearing bright orange shoes with bright orange gloves on, in a bright orange helmet, in a sea of blue. Strangely, that still stands out.
You've got
And as much as you laugh, even transition. My bike was so easy to find. My kit was so easy to find in transition. You know, people can laugh and joke about it, but actually, as a tactical racing strategy, it's hard to fault it for finding your kit.
Method in your madness.
Yeah, something like that. It's a great excuse for wearing orange, that's for sure.
You don't need an excuse, do what you want.
Well, there is that.
Yeah, do what you
There
want.
is that.
That's a philosophy, just do what you want. Who cares?
I do.
So, it's great to see you again. You're off, oh, there you go. Just going to say you're off frozen again. We're coming on to AMP. Thank you for showing an interest and coming on there. And we've had a couple of your athletes on already. As
You have indeed. Janice and Christina.
Yeah.
Both, ironically, both ends of the, I would almost call them both ends of the GB age group spectrum. I mean, you've got Yanis, who is almost bordering on old hand, and Christina really is the ultimate novice. I mean, she's actually had only even done a handful of duathlons, which made that quite stunning.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's an interesting, and obviously coaching both of them with slightly different objectives and goals is brilliant.
Yeah, so it keeps it interesting for you as a coach, doesn't it?
You know, I coach a mix. I mean, I don't just coach, obviously, triathletes, duathletes. I coach marathon runners, ultra-distance runners. I coached athletics in a club, semi-pro football.
Yeah.
I coached roller hockey. I like coaching. I mean, even when, I mean, you have to remember, it's like I said to you before, I'm not, let's be honest, I'm an age grouper, yes, and I see it as the reason I do it, and I'll be honest with you, I turned up in Punto because I wanted to win.
Yeah.
Like, let's not mess about.
Yeah.
I would have qualified every year that I started prepping for this. I spent 3 years prepping for Spain.
Yeah.
Everyone laughs. No. I deliberately went to age group qualifiers not to qualify. Because I wanted to make sure that when I was a first year vet 50, I was going to win. I didn't go trying to explain to people how disappointed you are when you finish 6th.
Yeah.
Yeah, people can't get their head around that, and I think that's where age group is interesting, because on the one hand, you've got the people who qualifying is an achievement.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And they qualify, and yes, it's because you can pay, but you do have to qualify. So it's an interesting borderline where you're not necessarily the best, but you have still had to earn that slot. And so there's the level of you did earn the right to be there, and then you get the opposite end of the spectrum, which is why, let's be honest, I think I'm Marmite among age group athletes, because for me qualifying isn't hard.
It's all about
Which makes me a bit.
I think people, you're right in some level. I think, but to get even to qualify, you've got to be of a certain standard, haven't you? Let's face it. You've got to put the work in, unless you're naturally gifted.
You know, and that's it. And I think this is it, isn't it? And I mean, I'm lucky. I've played sport. Let's be frank here. I was a good runner when I was 10. I was a good footballer. I already as a 10-year-old had a level of analysis in my life. Imagine turning up at trials and going, "Oh, I'm 10 years old. That right winger looks a bit good." And they say, "What position do you play?" And I went, "I'm a left winger." Because I knew the guy on the right was better than I was at 10 years old. And so I went away and learned to kick a ball with my left foot. You know, I've always had that. And I never, and it's fascinating. You read about guys like Steve Way, the ultra-distance runner, or Paul Marcolelli. These guys were very good schoolboys who then had 20 years off. So when they reappear in the stories about how 18-stone man does this. When you dig back through their background, you discover actually they were county champions when they were kids. I was never a county champion, but I've never not played sport. And people look, I'm 50 years old, and I played football. I ran in my teens. I roller skated. I joined the army at 18. I was the fastest runner in my regiment. Of course I was. I wasn't going to get beaten by anyone. As long as it wasn't 100 metres. Once it got over 400 metres and it stopped being an out-and-out sprint, I played. I left the army. I played football for a decade. I coached roller hockey. I was always the fit kid in my football team because I went to the gym. I went running. So when my football career ended, I went, well, I can run in a straight line. My knee is okay if I'm only running in a straight line. I'll go running. You know, I went running. I was working at a company and they said, we need someone to do triathlon in the corporate games. Suddenly there I was in Aberdeen in 1996. I can't swim. You laugh. When people tell you they can't swim, and then they say, I only do 7.5 minutes for 400 metres. And I look at them and I go, I am a 10-minute, on my best day, my best 400 metre time for swimming is 9:58.
Is that still?
Yeah, I've got worse, not better. I've never got better. That is my best time ever.
Why?
I took an hour and 16 minutes to do a swim in a half Ironman.
To that, and all that what you've said so far has been absolutely fascinating, and there's loads to pick up. But let's start off what you've done. I mean, you've hinted at it already. Let's start off of growing up, where you grew up, and you're into your sports. Give us a bit of background on that. Up until let's say up until you found multi-sport.
Let's be honest. People notice I have a Scottish accent. They then get confused when I point out I ran for Wales. But putting that aside, I grew up in a place called Falkirk, which I think, putting it politely, is not a very nice place. Or it wasn't in the bit that I grew up in. There are some very nice areas around there. My mum brought up 4 boys on a housing estate. I played schoolboy football. Fell on the dark side when I was a teenager. Went completely off the rails. Still played sport with my friends. No clubs. I played cricket, tennis, football, whatever. But no clubs. I was a roller skater through my teens, and for want of a better way of putting it, a potential alcoholic.
Right.
Had access to a roller rink and access to lots of alcohol. My teenage years were those of destruction and ruining your life, while still playing football at the weekend with the boys, so staying fit. Didn't really start. I mean, I didn't start playing organised sport again. Joined the army at 18, and off no training, got on a track while allegedly ill with post-viral syndrome, and ran a 16:37 5k.
Wow.
And everyone went, but you don't do any exercise. You're not allowed to train. I was lying in a keep afterwards. I collapsed when I crossed the finishing line. I said, but I was 18. I was 9 stone 4. All I was doing was I was carrying a rib cage around on a pair of legs that were used to running because I'd grown up in some woodlands playing with the boys. I'd grown up just playing football and running around. So I left the army and played football. Obviously, had a chance to play some football with friends. So I spent my 20s playing. I played football. Like I say, I played football, played roller hockey. I coached. You laugh. I coached girls under 12 football. Yeah. I obviously got involved in coaching in the clubs I played at. I played both standards. So on a Saturday, I got as far as playing sort of high enough standard that occasionally you got 10 quid. Rather than paying match fees, occasionally I got paid.
Yeah.
And then on a Sunday, I was playing hackers, choppers, and kickers Division 6 with my mates. Because I loved playing the game. I loved the sport. I played in the 5-a-side league. If there was a game going, I'd play for an extra game on a Sunday. If one of my mates said, Mark, do you mind playing as John Smith and sitting on the bench for us because we've only got 11 players, and getting there and the coach said, we've only got 10 players, you're playing. By the way, if you get booked, your name's Barry James or or whatnot. And I turned my knee the wrong way in a tackle.
Right.
It was that simple.
Yeah.
But I say I was working, and the corporate games came up in Aberdeen.
Who were you working for?
At that time, I was working for a company called EDS, who are like an outsourced. They do outsourced IT and whatnot.
Right.
By an American guy, and I somehow found myself back in Scotland working in Edinburgh.
Okay.
And the corporate games were in Aberdeen, and you'll love this. Don't swim, did no swim training. I could run. I hired a mountain bike and a helmet from someone near the event. And I don't have any idea on any times. All I know is there's no way I scared anyone towards the front. I've got pictures of it, and you can tell I look like a runner who turned up at a triathlon. When I come out to do the last run, you see I'm in running kit. I put socks on. I was in running shorts. I'm in a running vest. I'd obviously cycled in my baggy shorts and a running vest on a mountain bike.
Yeah.
And I never thought anything of it. I put it away. I came back. I carried on playing my football, my roller hockey. I've coached to Great Britain standard at roller hockey. I played for Wales, obviously, because that's my thing. And hit 30. Had to give up football. I said I turned my knee the wrong way in a tackle.
Yeah.
Avoided surgery by not playing. The knee got strong enough that I could run in a straight line. I used the gym bike, you know the drill when you build it back up. Bit of bike. And I got a bike, and in 2001, I did my local triathlon in Newbury.
Right.
Because I lived in Berkshire.
Okay.
And Newbury Tri still runs every year. And obviously, I didn't scare the leaders. I was in the water for about 4 days, even though the swim's only 300 metres. I had a giant TCR with some aero bars on it that looked like, you know when you see people on TT bars, and they look like they're sat on top of the bike like that?
Yeah.
I've seen the pictures. I look like I'm sat on top of the bike. And I ran, and I thought, oh, this is fun.
Yeah.
So I went off. I then entered an open water event and bought a wetsuit. Entered a novice event, was nearly last out of the water. Battered everyone on the bike, and then of course stormed around the water, and I won the novice category at some open water triathlon. I went, I'm going to do a half Ironman. And in 2001, and you'll laugh, it wasn't hard to enter these things.
Yeah.
I suddenly decided in July I was going to do a race that was in the September, and I did Llanberis. If you've ever been to Llanberis, you'll know how cold the water is, how hilly the course is, and the possibilities of getting, well, in the space of a day, I swear to God, I got chilblains and sunburn.
Doesn't sound like fun.
It was I took an hour and 16 minutes to do the swim. I took 3 hours, 20 minutes to do 56 miles on a bicycle. And what was left of me ran up and down Penny Pass in, I think officially 1 hour 50, but I distinctly remembered spending 10, 15 minutes sat in the transition trying to convince myself that I could get my cold, battered body to run up and down the hill. Once it was running, it was fine. But I didn't want to leave transition. I remember that. But it got me. I know it sounds weird. I was hooked now. And that got me interested. Now I should point out, I don't swim. I've got I've got rotator impingement damage in both shoulders. I've broken both collarbones. I've broken one shoulder, and I've dislocated the other one.
Right.
So I can't even do swim training. It's not like I can go away and become a great swimmer.
Yeah.
My body can't take the swimming.
Yeah.
But the bigger problem than that is, as a schoolboy, I nearly drowned.
Yeah.
So I have an actual fear of water.
Right.
So couple that to having a bust-up body, but something about Llanberis hooked me. And I thought, I'm gonna master this, and I took swimming lessons. And the next year I went to Sherborne, and I did almost the same time I'd done in Llanberis. Sherborne as well was incredibly hilly, But after I did Sherborne, there was a lot of web chatter, even in those early days, about the course being short.
Right.
The swim was short, the run was short, and they went, no, our course was actually measured. Those of us who went back in 2004 discovered that the accurately measured course, the swim boys had moved out, and amazingly there was this whole extra bit of running you had to do each lap, and it was like a set of switchbacks.
Yeah.
So the not short course obviously was, and I did almost exactly the same time a year later on the longer course. So I was fitter.
Yeah.
I'd gone faster on the bike. I went about an hour faster. I did like 5:40, but my swim and my run were both almost like 52 minutes, which I was quite happy with after taking an hour and 16, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
And still recreational. And my run was about 90 minutes. It's solid. Bike was 3 hours.
Yeah.
Still riding just a road bike with a set of bars on the top of it. And then they announced that the following year it was going full distance. There was going to be no half Ironman in Britain. I mean, back then, it was a long time ago. As much as we laugh and we know how big triathlon is now, it wasn't big.
Yeah.
It was a niche sport even in 2004. So when they were going full Ironman in, I think 05 was, well, it was Bolton or whatever, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I wasn't ready. There was no way I was going to do 3.4 k's of swimming. So that was it. That was the end of my triathlon journey. I went ultra distance running.
Right.
So I should point out, I've got a 2:38 marathon PB. I've run sub 3.5 hours for 50k. I've got a 16-minute 5k PB.
Yeah.
My pedigree is in the trainers, really.
Yeah.
And it parked, and that was me. I went running, and I was doing 4,000 miles a year. I won the Welsh ultra distance marathon championships. Oh, the Welshness, by the way, is my mother.
Right.
My mum's from Pembroke. My mum and back are all from Pembrokeshire. So I earned the right to be Welsh through my family from my mother backwards.
What happened after the ultras then?
So in January 2009, of all things, I won a marathon in a tunnel in Germany.
Right.
And I fell during the race. And I got up, so I rolled straight over. I cut myself, whatever, got up and I ran. I won the marathon.
Yeah.
And I was training a week or so later and I tore a fibre in my pelvis. It turned out I'd done some damage in the fall.
Right.
And I damaged my lower back.
Yeah.
Never thought anything of it. I made a recovery, I thought. I came second in the Shakespeare Marathon. Was training again to do the comrades. And I broke my leg. For want of a better way, you know when someone gets a stress fracture and they say I had to have a week off running?
Yeah.
Well, one of my stress fractures broke.
Right.
Just above the ankle, just above my ankle joint.
Mm.
I've got a nice lump on my leg where it became a broken leg. When I had my scan, this woman looked at me and she said, she showed me this little white mark. Well, that's not too bad. When they spun my MRI, basically my lower left leg looked like a jigsaw puzzle.
Mm.
And I was just basically, my from the calf down to my ankle, my lower left leg, a microfracture basically.
Mm.
I spent 3 months wearing an air boot.
Right.
I couldn't walk, never mind run. But I could ride a bicycle because I could take this thing off.
Yeah.
So I needed competition. I got back on the bike again and I went time trialing.
Okay.
And unlike a lot of people, I got straight out on the bike, jumped on my battered old road bike from 2001 with the aero bars on it, and I rode 24 minutes for 10 miles. And everyone went, oh. So, you're not bad at this. So, funnily enough, I did some more. I bought some wheels. I got myself a pointy helmet. And I went a little bit faster. So I thought, I need a time trial bike, don't I? So next thing you know, I had a specialised transition, a set of Zip 404s, a pointy helmet, and a skin suit. And I went...
The question is, was it orange?
No, it was nasty grey, and those points. The helmet was red because my local bike shop picked me up and offered to sponsor/support me a little bit.
Yeah.
So I took whatever they would do me a diamond deal on. So suddenly I had a red Met helmet, I had a grey specialised transition, and I went, ooh, as part of rehab, my leg was now working. I spent a lot of time, I rode, I ran, and while I was coming back, I went, oh, I'm going to do something. I'll do the local triathlon. I'll do a duathlon. I'll try and qualify for GB. So in 2010, I qualified for Nancy.
Just going back there then, how did you find out about GB age group?
I entered a couple of events and I saw the tri-suits.
Right.
And you'll laugh here. I don't.
Was that the first time you come across them then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did a couple of events. I came, would you believe, I think in 2010, I actually came third. I actually came third in the age group championships as a vet 40.
Yeah.
And
okay.
Rixie and I had actually crossed paths running at the Yateley 10Ks and things like that when I was running.
Yeah.
But we bumped into each other again. And I took an interest. Went on the British Triathlon website.
Yeah.
Again, it was quite quiet in those days.
Yeah.
And I qualified. So I went to Nancy. I then qualified for Edinburgh, which was quite funny to go to Edinburgh. I punctured, and I'm not a completer even then.
Yeah.
I got off the bike and I clapped my friends in.
Yeah.
Qualified the following year. I went to Ireland, and I think I came 8th.
What distance was this, man?
Back then, that was standard.
Standard distance, right.
So I was doing standard distance back then. And I was coaching a couple of guys I coached also qualified for Ireland. So we had a road trip.
Okay.
4 of us actually went to Ireland for the Euros. I was coaching all 4 of us. We had a blast, mate. We just had a cracking weekend. The course in Ireland was good. The event went well, and it was all that. And I qualified again for the Worlds as well. And it was getting a bit expensive. And I'll be honest, I got a little bit antsy with the I'm a GB athlete brigade.
Right.
And I just thought, I've had enough. I was starting to got to run a lot.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know what, I'm ready to go running again.
Uh-huh.
And that was my 2010, 2011, that was my age group experience. And I found it. I've done that.
Yeah.
I've done that. I've had enough. I've done it off my own back. I've paid my way. I've raced. I've done all right. My friends raced. As a coach, I can say I'm a good enough coach to take people there.
Yeah.
And I don't coach. I have no website. There's no website. There's no advertising. I coach because people find me.
Yeah. So how many athletes have you got at the moment?
10, I think.
Right. Okay.
10 I'm coaching, and then I mentor and support a group. So I run a group on Zwift and things like that.
Yeah.
And I mentor and support a few other friends as well.
Yeah. Cool.
So I went back to my running. I slipped in my cycling shoes. I was commuting to work.
Right.
And I slipped down 2 stairs. And I don't know if you can see it. I turned my left ankle again that way.
Yeah.
You'll laugh. I limped. I thought, oh, that smarts a bit. It was 2 days before I was due to do my comrades qualifier.
Right.
50k race.
Yeah.
The next morning I got up and thought, yeah, it doesn't feel too good. It's a bit sore. Went for a run. That's okay. I did my qualifier. Qualified for comrades.
Mm.
And I was training, and 2 days later I'm out running with my mate, and I thought, this feels like a stress fracture. My ankle was purple when I turned and pulled the ligaments. And it turned out I had broken the other bone in my lower left leg. So I didn't get to go to comrades.
Yeah.
I had to stop running again. And while I was in healing, I got a call from the hospital. They said, we need to talk to you about your ankle. And I went, but I've got a broken leg. And they went, no, your leg's healing fine. So I come in. It turns out I've got degeneration in my ankle joint.
Oh.
And my ankle is wearing bone on bone.
Right.
So in no short words, they said, stop running.
Oh, okay.
It was that simple.
Yeah.
And I went, you are joking. They said, no, they said every time you run, you're wearing your joint. I'll be frank with you, I cried when I left the hospital. I walked home in tears.
Yeah.
I had plans for ultras, comrades, silver medals. Yeah. And you don't believe them, do you? So I recovered and tried to get back, tried to run, and every time the run mileage went up, my ankle went purple, swelled up, and I stopped. And in 2013, I ran 130 miles in 6 months. I got to 78 kilograms in weight, which is, in fact, I think I peaked out at nearly 80 Ks, which is 12 stone 8, which is the heaviest I've ever been in my life.
Yeah.
Even when I played ice hockey, I didn't get that heavy. And I rode my bike, I was time trialing, I was going okay. And I was happy I was going to just be a cyclist. And I was sat having Chinese with a friend of mine who I coached. A girl marathon runner, has won a number of races, 250 marathon runner. And she looks at me, she says, Coach. I said, what's that? She says, you could get in shape again and pace make me at a 10K, couldn't you? And you know, it's like, you laugh, don't you? You laugh, you sit back, you say, you are joking. I sat there, I'm like, I've run 130 miles in 6 months. I'm fat. She says, you've got 3 months. Stubby's in January, Coach. So I went out 2 days later, and having run 130 miles in 6 months, I did a flat-out 5K effort. And people who are listening to this are about to hate me.
I already do, and you haven't said it.
I ran 19 and a half minutes,
Yeah, I don't like
having done nothing basically for 6 months, at the best part of 80 kilograms. The next 3 weeks, I ran 20 miles a week, and I paced a controlled effort 1854 3 weeks later.
Yeah.
And my friend just looked at me and she says, you're already halfway to about a pace me to a sub 38 minute 10K. She says, you've been 3 weeks. Huh? Yeah. A month later, we had a second benchmark event. The weather conditions were horrendous. I ran full gas and ran exactly the same time. Which at the first point you're thinking, well, that's not good, you didn't make any progress in a month. Until you realise that a number of people who had run the same event a month earlier were a minute slower. I had run the same in horrendous conditions. That January we ran 37 something. And my friends all went, well, how fast do you think you can run? I was like, don't know. I said, I'm not training for me. I'm training for this girl so I can pace make. And one of the guys who I knew said, if you run blah time, will you run a flat-out effort? Well, we'll see. And I turned up at a 5K, like you do. And they said, will you enter a 10K if you run X fast? And I ran 17:29 for a 5K. And I went, yeah. If I'd actually believed in myself, I'd have gone a lot faster, you laugh. I was at the front and I slowed down because I got so used to being mid-pack with having not run. When I caught the leaders, it was at a park run up in Lincolnshire somewhere.
Yeah.
I slowed down because I thought, I shouldn't be here. People should be quicker than I am. And for 2Ks in the middle of the event, I then kicked. I ran 16:45 a few weeks later.
Wow.
at 44.
Yeah.
And went, oh, okay. I'll enter a 10k now. And ran 35 something for 10k. And I went, oh, that's not bad. Yeah. So that actually ironically got the duathlon bells ringing again, didn't it? Because I was time filing and whatnot.
So what do you put is it natural ability? I know you've always, your lifestyle's been running and biking and doing all these different sports, but do you think some of that's natural ability that you've got genetic?
I have some genetic, so I have done some of the genetic profiling.
Right.
I do have a level of genetics which allow me to, I can do very high volume training, which my body responds to and recover. So I can do 20, 25 hours a week, week after week after week. And my body just sucks it up. I've done 9 hours on the bike this weekend. Yeah. There is obviously a level of that. Although annoyingly, I do have measured small lungs of all things.
All right.
But my body uses oxygen very, very well. I've been to see Gary Palmer at Sports Test.
Okay.
I rode and raced for Gary for a couple of seasons because he's in the West Midlands.
Yeah.
And so I've been testing. I do have a level of, but I also have something that I like misery, pain and suffering.
I think that goes a long way, doesn't it?
I know how to put myself, I can put myself in a hurt locker, which is something that a lot of people think they're trying hard and they're not. You know, you look at them and you hear them running, oh, I can't run any faster than that. You think, you're putting a sentence together. When I'm under extreme duress, I can barely manage left, right, thank you. And sometimes you'll get that as I go past because you've moved over from it.
Yeah.
You know, and I like that. There's a part of me that obviously likes misery.
Interesting. Going back to your athletic story then and your journey, you've obviously got back into running and you're helping the girl do a pacing for a 10k. What did that lead on to then?
It was that led on to me discovering that I could still run a bit.
Yeah. What about
cycling?
What about your injury, your ankles? And
I learned to look at my ankle when it goes. It sounds silly. I can get away with 20 or 30 miles a week.
Right.
Every so often I can do a little bit more. The second I know I've done two more is the fact that my ankle goes a funny shade of mottled purple and swells up. And at that point I know it's time to take a few days out the trainers.
Yeah.
And it's balance.
Yeah.
I can't. I mean, I did something stupid last year. I thought I might get lucky and be able to manage because I've been doing 1,500 miles a year. Pretty much every year since the girl got me running again.
Yeah.
And I've done a couple of 15-mile runs. I've done some pacemaking. I can run 90 minutes for a half marathon tomorrow. And it made me think, what if, can I do it? Could I maybe get another marathon out of my legs? I tested that theory in September last year and discovered no, my body broke down around 17 miles. It's put that to bed now.
At least you know that now.
I do know that now, and I didn't. And, you know.
And it's good to know, because then you can move on and plan other things, can't you?
And that's where I'm at an interesting place at the moment, in the respects that because of lockdown, and since September, I've hardly run.
Yeah.
I've put my efforts into the bike because, well, Spain last year, it was a little bit of a shock running sub-17-minute 5k pace and being dropped. And I was probably one of the strongest riders in our field, but because the course was so flat, I couldn't get away.
Yeah.
I plan to turn up at my next age group event, being an even stronger cyclist, and making more attempts to break everyone and be upsetting in the bunch by blasting off the front every time I think I've recovered if I get caught.
Yeah.
So, I will turn up if there are events this year. I'll turn up at 50 years old in 17-minute 5K shape.
Yeah.
But I also plan to turn up with an FTP of the best part of 330 watts as well.
Do you think that affected your race then in Punta because you were trying to escape the drafting race?
Well, it's an interesting one. If I was sensible and I thought my legs could take it, I should do standard.
Yeah.
And I've taken I took bronze at 17 and 18 at the GB age group champs.
Yeah.
I step up and I do the age group champs every year, even though they're in the standard distance, just for a laugh. I got bronze in 17, bronze in 18, but my legs tied up both times, and I still got bronze. And then in 19 a DNF because my legs broke down completely. And I had to walk off the course on the second run. I couldn't move, my leg completely broke down. But yeah, I mean, I'm a victim of the fact, let's face it, I can ride. I've ridden sub 20 minutes for 10 miles. I've got a 51-minute, 25-mile PB. I'm going to be one of the strongest cyclists. But the reality was, mate, I came off in Spain, if I was one of the six, and the Brits are very vocal in the bunch. Probably because there's 4,000 of us compared to everyone else.
I was just going to say that, yeah.
And they're cussing away at the Spaniards and that because they don't want to work.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say this, and I was there, we were in the front group. If I knew I was one of the fastest runners, then I would sit in the bunch and do nothing as well.
Yeah.
But I'd had to come out of transition. I came out in 6th place.
Yeah.
So I had to ride close the gap, get to the leaders.
Yeah.
If I was going to make anything happen, it was my job to do that.
Yeah. No, I get.
If I'm one of the best,
Yeah. No, you said that from you gauged from the first run that you weren't the quickest. You were about 6.
Yeah.
So absolutely right. In that scenario, you had to try and break them on the bike.
I had no choice.
Yeah.
And so what I did was I attacked every time I got my breath back. Every time off a roundabout, I attacked everyone.
Yeah.
And I tried to hide myself in traffic in the hope they wouldn't notice me and all sorts. But of course, the downside of being in bright orange, I'm not hiding anywhere. So I sort of shot myself in the foot trying to lose myself in amongst the other guys coming out of transition on other laps by wearing bright orange. And I came into transition in the front, in the lead group, and I finished 6th. Of course I did, because the same 5 runners who outrun me on the first run, well, they outran me on the second run. And I didn't run slowly. Could I have run faster if I'd sat in the bunch? Maybe. I might have got 5th, not 6th, because I caught the 5th fastest runner, and he dropped me in the last, basically the sprint to the line, the last sort of 400 metres. But I'd spent 5k I'd spent the entire run chasing him. Finally got to him, but of course he had a little bit left that I didn't have. But do I think I should have been sensible and saved myself so that I could come 5th? No.
No, not in that regard. No.
I was already disappointed because I'd been dropped by 5 people anyway. I did everything I could to try and upset them. I came 6th. It was the best I could do on the day. I ran 320 Ks out of transition on the second run. It wasn't like I was... the course was... If we'd had the standard distance course for the sprint, I'd have had a chance because there were lots of sharp turns and there were a couple of slopes.
Yeah.
I needed that course to be competitive. It is what it is. And Almere, let's be frank, Almere is going to be horrible for me again. Because the bike course is pan flat and dull.
Yeah.
But I've got no choice but to try and turn up there even stronger on the bike than I was this year.
Well, it's something to aim for, isn't it?
And I'm training.
Yeah. Good. Well, good luck with that. I shall see you hopefully. I'm training as well, so it'll be good to meet it up again in the flesh.
I just want to go out and do some running races, mate. I want to get I need a spot to do things, even if it's park run, so that I've got the motivation to run. Because at the moment, I was the anti-Zwift until March last year.
Yeah, so I believe that. Yeah. I mean, I remember. I don't know where it was.
Well, I didn't need it, mate.
But
I didn't need it because
exactly.
I can train staring at a dot on the wall.
Yeah.
If I know I've got races to aim at. When you've got a club time trial every Wednesday, you've got an open event every weekend. You can race 2-3 times a week in peak season. Park run on a Saturday, time trial or cyclocross on a Sunday, club 10 on a Tuesday, one other session a week. You can do that. You don't need to go playing on your Game Boy with your bicycle. But when there's a lockdown, I needed something to make me train. I can't run. I haven't run faster than I haven't run flat out since April last year for any amount of distance.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing to target. What I've done is I've given my legs some downtime. And I'm thinking, well, by doing this, my leg is getting recovery. I'm taking over. I'm doing 20 miles here, 20 miles there. I do no speed work. I might run 7-minute mile pace occasionally when I'm out for a jog just because I can.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking, do it all on the bike. And Zwift has given me racing. It's given me my training group.
Yeah.
I'm doing the hard exercise. I've had to change my training to race on Zwift. That's the funniest thing. Is I had to modify how I was training so I could compete on Zwift.
So it just shows that you're adaptable, doesn't it, as well? And in these times, you've got to do what you've got to do.
Yeah, and at the moment, if you ask me what I am, I'm a Zwift racer.
Yeah. And that's fine. Because at least, we keep doing something, and that's the main thing, isn't it?
Mate, it's giving me the motivation to train.
Yeah.
I got a hill climb season in last year, which was fantastic.
Yeah.
It was absolutely great because every weekend I could go out and do 1 or 2 hill climbs.
Yeah.
And what it showed was that the numbers for the hill climbs translated from Zwift to the real world.
Yeah.
And that meant that when we came out of that and they cancelled cyclocross season, it gave me the motivation to have a winter break, kick back and train, knowing fine well that if I race and train on Zwift now, when I can get back outside, that power that I'm building on my bike transfers to the real world.
Which is good. Some advice you would give to people starting out in multi-sport or people who want to qualify for age groups?
Take your time. I know it sounds silly, but actually do a few races, yes, but train, take advice. Take advice, train. I'm not saying get a coach, but take a little bit of advice. Do some research and actually try different distances. It's amazing how often people go long. You encourage them to do different distances. You soon learn who the sprinters are, but you don't make them focus on the 100 metres because that's where they've done their best at 12 years old. They still do the 200, the 60 and the 4. And actually you encourage them to do cross-country season in the winter because it'll make them strong. An 800 metre runner doesn't do marathons. He does the 8, the 15 and maybe the 3K, and actually you make him do the 4. And as you learn what they do, then their distance lengthens. So if you look at Halle Gabriselassie, Paula, they were 5K, they were 800, 1500 metres. Not very good at that. They were 3K, 5K runners. I'm okay at that. But what am I like at 10? Oh, 10K. Oh, I'm actually not bad at 10K. I'll do a half marathon. And then they became marathon runners. Adults get up, they do a 5K, think that hurt, and someone says, you should run a marathon.
But it seems
and then you go out.
In triathlon, it seems to be that there's a path, isn't there? They start off with a sprint, that's the first.
Do an Ironman.
They might do a couple, and then they'll do the Olympic, and yet they've done that, and then they'll go, somebody will say,
Ironman.
Let's do an Ironman, yeah. Come on.
Yeah.
And maybe
all
the second season, and it's like, if you haven't done an Ironman, you ain't a triathlete.
And we always say to people, the difference between you coach kids and they come up with the speed, the running technique, the smooth, the foundation. they've done the build on the muscles, and they're ready to go long. The reason why so many people get disillusioned with multi-sport, with running, anything, is because they get injured. And they get injured because they do too much too soon, go too long too soon. They're scared. And I think adults are often scared of hard work. They're scared to suffer a little bit. That's what I said to you. So they go long because it's easy to train to hold a steady pace and complete something than it is to go short. And I say to people, start short, become as fast as you can, and then if you want to go further, go further.
Yeah.
But take the time to build. You need to build. An engine doesn't come overnight. It takes time. There's no quick fixes. There's no shortcuts. You might find you hear people often say, oh yeah, but I'm designed to go long. It's like, no, you just haven't trained to go short.
Yeah.
You haven't given it a chance. You've just gone, oh well, I can hold the same pace for hours. Yeah, but the same pace you're holding for hours is slow. If you spend a little bit of time in the short end of the field, when you want to go long later, you'll be able to hold a pace for hours that will be faster because you've done some development, built some muscle twitch, built some muscle, built some fiber, built some technique. A lot of technique comes from doing things fast. And you can tell, you can see when you watch people running marathons, even when you see a 70-year-old guy, you can spot the 60, 70-year-old who ran when he was younger. You watch triathlon, you watch the age groupers, and you watch the 70, 80-year-olds. You can spot the guy who's been racing for 40 years. Because he actually still looks like he's running at 75 years old, not shuffling along. There used to be a guy in the age group, was it Brian Wedden? 10 years ago, he was a bet 50, bet 60, whatever. Was very good on the bike. He was like a 20-minute 10-miler as a 50-something. But if you watched, he could run. And his legs turned over. And that's what you see. You see the guys, you watch the bet 50s who are at the very, very front. You look at how those guys are running. If you cut their heads off and actually said, how old's that guy running? You wouldn't know that was a 50-year-old guy. Because the posture is built, the stride is there, it's long, the heel is raised, the turnover is fast. You see the guy who's come to it late and didn't run for 40 years, generally they've got a big long stride, but they loll up. The turnover is slow because they're not doing any quick feet drills. That's how fast I run. Yeah, because you're not doing speed work, because you're scared of it. Don't be afraid of speed work is the advice I would give to people.
Brilliant.
Speed work is fun. Pain. Embrace a little bit of suffering.
Wise words. Next question. What's your favourite piece of a kit? And why?
My favourite piece of kit. Right now it's my walk bike.
Right.
I bought a walk bike after having a really bad crash in a crit race. Turned out to be the best thing I ever did. I bought it for rehab because I had 2 broken ribs, broken collarbone, a dislocated shoulder, a broken elbow, concussion. Right now my favourite bit of kit is my walk bike.
So going forward then, Mark, short-term goals, long-term goals, what do you see yourself?
Short-term, quite simply, this year is Worlds and Euros. Do you know what? Long-term, I'm probably going back on the bike.
Right.
To be honest, I'm not. It's like we said. I'm not. I need to do age group every year. I like to come and do it for a few years. I see myself doing more. I've been dabbling in 24-hour mountain bike racing.
Right. Okay.
You're gonna laugh. Like many people, I'm very good at going for a long time. Well, I did ultras. I was an ultra distance marathon runner. I don't like the idea of doing 12s and 24 hours on the road on a time trial bike. I do, however, enjoy doing 24-hour single-speed mountain bike races.
Right.
But I'll do that. I've got a couple of. I mean, it's weird. I say I'll do this year and maybe next year, and then I'll probably park age group again at least till I'm 55, maybe even until I'm 60, like I did before. Did it at 40, did it at 50. I might wait till I'm 60. But I've got a couple of ambitions for the track. I ran 2:20 for 800 metres last year. Before in 2018, before COVID. I'd like to see whether or not I can get my 800 metres back down towards 2:10, because that would be quite competitive as a 50-year-old man. So I've got a little bit, and I like that short speed, which is the interesting contradiction, because the other thing I'll be doing at the same time is 24-hour single-speed mountain bike racing.
Well, you're definitely mixing it up.
And I love those extremes. But I mean, I did that while I was playing with age group qualifiers. I was doing 25-mile time trials. I was pacemaking half marathons. I was running. Well, when I do Vets Track League, I say I'll do any distance you want under 1,500 metres, and I'm on the line doing hundreds. Mate, I can't sprint. I'm a distance runner. I mean, 800 metres is a sprint race. And I stand on the start line to do the 100, and it's like I've got the reactions of cabbage. You go and it's like, oh, people are moving. But I love that. I as much as I love winning, I also like putting myself out of my comfort box. So running a 400 metres, a 200, 100 is great because it makes me run and it makes my technique and it helps with all that stuff I believe in to keep the old keep those old legs working like a runner should. I do that. The 24-hour mountain bike racing started as a joke. I've done 3. I did 3 in the same year. I'll do some because it's a mental challenge as well as physical. And a part of me I've discovered needs that. I can do a duathlon for giggles at any point. I know I stay in X shape. I want to do the hill climb championships, which means I have to lose 5-6 kgs in weight. And if I do that, it's hard to then focus on better do enough running. And so I think this will probably be, this year or next year will be my last little play with age group for a bit. I'm hoping I'll carry on coaching. I might turn up at the occasional duathlon because I enjoy them.
Yeah, I was going to say you'll still be involved because you've got some age groupers.
Oh yeah, very much so. And I'll be coaching hopefully. And like I say, I'm hoping I've got people who are doing things like outlaw and things this year, and I'm hoping I'm going to go watch. I'm going to go and be a fan and just cheer people in. I might ride there, for example, to get my training in, but go along and be a fan. I love triathlon. I think that's the thing is, I mean, I love the sport. And that's never changed. And even if I don't do it, I love the sport. I always laugh, why be bad at one sport when you can be bad at 3? You know? Or why be good at 1 when you can be mediocre at 3? All of those jokes. This is why I'm a duathlete.
Absolutely. Well, like I always say, you've got to play to your strengths.
I think yes.
Multi sport gives us the ability to do that, doesn't it?
I think if you want to be, if you truly have goals on being competitive, then play to your strengths. I think on the other side of that is if you are someone who gets pride just from qualifying or just achieving things, then the best advice I can do is do the events you enjoy. If you hate swimming, I use me as an example, don't be a triathlete. Because swimming is hard. It's hard technically. It's hard to learn and hone those skills. And if you don't enjoy it,
what's the point?
Don't do it. If you hate riding your bike, then be a runner or a swimmer. And you love swimming. Go and be a master swimmer.
Yeah.
Be a 5K expert. Don't do triathlon when you hate riding your bike. The bike is the place where you make the most time up. Yeah. We're not going to be pros. If you're not going to be a pro, you're not going to win a medal. If you hate cycling, don't do multisport, or don't do the part of multisport that involves riding a bike. If you hate running, do aquabike.
Same multi-sport. There are so much different things. If you're not good at one, you can do something else.
But it's not even not good, is it? I know people who are solid swimmers, but they hate swimming. And every time they go swimming, they curse. So if you don't like it, don't do it. We're not making money from this.
No.
You know, you do age group, you're paying a lot of premium for the pleasure. So make it pleasure. When I went to Spain this year, you'll laugh, I drove to Spain so that I could drive back, go climb Ventoux, go climb Alpe d'Huez, because deep down I'm a cyclist.
I think loads of age groupers do that though, don't they? They make it a holiday.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think many took their car all the way to the south of Spain.
I don't think they did. Well, Mark, it's been a great pleasure to talk to you. I think that's a great place to end it.
Brilliant.
Yeah, thank you ever so much for coming on and giving us your wise words and opinions. And I'm sure that lots of people will listen and enjoy it.
Cheers, buddy. Take care.
Take care. See you soon.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks again to Mark for coming on and sharing his story. Much appreciated. Yeah, well, lots to digest there, to be fair. I think the biggest message to come across from Mark was do what you enjoy. And if you don't enjoy it, don't do it. So, and as Mark, rightly says, and he follows his own example there by doing other things. He doesn't particularly enjoy swimming, so he does time trialing, he does duathlons, he does 24-hour mountain bike riding, and it's just do what you enjoy at the end of the day. So yeah, wise words there from Mark. And if you have any questions or you want to get in touch, you can email us at agegroupmultisportpodcast@gmail.com or drop us a message through amp_1967, and you can follow us on amp_1967 and Facebook at ampgb, and you can go on our website at agegroupmultisportpodcast.buzzsprout.com, and you can find us on Twitter at agegroupmultisportpodcast. And that is it for another episode. Thank you for joining us, thank you for listening, thank you for your support, much appreciated, and we shall see you in a fortnight. And remember, stay safe, keep training, and love the process.